All right, they all claim to know the motives behind President Trump's statements, the media, politicians, the intel community. But nobody knows what the president's thinking more than his closest aides, even some who are no longer inhabiting the White House. And that includes an old friend, former White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, who was the first person the president called after the Helsinki summit. Call me. Joining us now, Reince Priebus. Great to have you on tonight. How are you, man?
Great to see you, too.
You're a stranger.
I was out for a couple of weeks with the family.
Yeah, nice.
Enjoying something I haven't been able to do for many, many years.
Yeah,
It's called a vacation.
A little rest. Right. Well, you don't get any rest. No rest for the weary tonight.
No,
reaction.
What a night I picked to come
I know.
on
So
your
Reince
show.
is like trying to get out the back door. I'm like, come back. So what's your reaction? You heard the segment with Rudy and Saul and Dershowitz.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard the tape, but what I have done is I looked at the story from CNN on their own website. And even in their own story, they're sort of equivocating back and forth as to what the president said or didn't say, and it's not really clear what he said or didn't say. Look, you know, I think Saul at the end on your last segment had it sort of right. At the very worst, it might be embarrassing, but it's not illegal. One thing I have learned from being out of the sort of spotlight and the daily grind is that when you go back to Wisconsin and Michigan and Ohio, it's not just a talking point, it is just the absolute truth. I have not found a single person who is swayed by any of these stories, which is a massive financial boon to, you know, no offense, but to cable news,
right.
and especially a couple other networks. So it's not moving America. The president was at 37% on election day when he won. He's at, if you believe the worst poll, at 45 today. And so what people really focus in on is where's the economy, and isn't it great that we're at projected potentially 4% growth of GDP under Donald Trump?
Yep.
That's really what matters.
How many well-known people do you know who have dealt with people who make allegations, sue them? I don't know. Who knows what happened? I don't know what happened. But I do know when you're well-known, you're a target. You know, and you were a target in other ways, but you're a target. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to deal with this, or maybe I made a mistake. And get this off the table.
Well, just because someone settles a case doesn't mean they're guilty.
Well, it happens all the time. Corporate America, cost of doing business.
When I was as you're a lawyer, I've been a lawyer for 20 years. I was a litigator for most of that time. I've settled a lot of cases where clients said, you know, this is BS. I can't believe we're settling it. And you'd say, okay, well, that's great, but, you know, we can also, or we can spend a couple $100,000 in legal fees.
See, I litigate everything. I'm a litigator. I'm like, you sue me, I'm coming after you. I'll spend all the money I have to sue you back. So don't think about it. But yeah, but most people don't do that.
That's right.
They're not going to deal with that. So when you were with the president, things like this came up all the time. How does he handle it? What is his reaction? You were there when this kind of stuff came up, bubbled up. It was the last days of the campaign. People were freaking out. A lot of people were thinking he's dropped out of the race, and this Billy Bush thing happened. Now, you know, this came out days before the election. How is he dealing with it?
Well, look, I was one of the people that would freak out over every one of these kinds of stories. And over time, what I figured out with the president is that nothing sticks to him. None of this sticks. And what I found about his character is that he is a person who's able, which I am not one of these kinds of people, that can handle 50 total, you know, massive, you know, bullets coming at you and arrows and whatever you want to term it at one time, remain the same kind of person on a pretty much daily basis, in spite of the fact that maybe today 10 arrows are coming at you. Yep. Next week it might be 50. The next week might be a pleasant week where only 2 or 3.
Things have to calm down, though, don't you think? I mean,
I think it'd be better for him. Here's what I think about the president. I think that if you look at the fundamentals of what he's accomplished, we won't go through them all, but we talk about him every day. It's unbelievable. If somehow or another some of these other issues could just go away by 50%, you'd be talking about the president on the $10 bill. And so I do also believe that there is a huge benefit to the president of putting some of these things to bed.
You don't have to fight everyone at once. You don't have to swing at every pitch. I've said this before. There's a lot coming at you. Don't have to swing at every adversary.
And he would be at 65% plus approval rating, my belief. But I also know that the president has, in spite of all of those types of advice that I've given, he's also defied it all. He was the guy that went down the escalator in June of 2015 and thought he was going to be president of the United States.
You all experts on TV.
Right.
He's probably watching. We're wrong, and I get it, but I don't think everyone's always wrong. But I get the point. He's done well. But Republicans are 7 points down among independents. Right. The Republican pool itself has shrunk a bit. His numbers have ticked up, which is fantastic. But you need those independents. You need those suburban. And they want things to calm down. Do they not?
In moderate House districts, that is true.
So what do you do? If you're advising the president, he calls you, what do you say? Mr. President?
Look, well, for one thing, I would not have advised him to say that he misspoke in Helsinki. I would have probably advised him to do what I think, I'm just guessing, what's in his head, which is, look, people, I'm trying to get along with somebody here, and you might not agree with every single approach I'm taking, but I'm doing my best to get along with a person that it has been difficult for us to get along with, and I'm trying a different angle here, and that's what I'm doing. And just be straight about it and move forward, not to claim
they were all in the
that he
situation
misspoke.
room.
Because I think the rest
like
of
it was Armageddon if he wanted to have a better relationship with
because
Russia.
the rest of the country, outside of here and outside of New York, isn't really paying attention that much.
No.
And so to compromise, I think, what you actually believed in order to get.
So you're saying he didn't misspeak?
I don't know if he did or not. I don't think he did. I think he generally wants to get along with a person, and he has a demeanor of, hey, we're going to get along. We're going to be friends through this. We're going to talk about things. And
so did Bush. So did Clinton. So did Reagan.
I'm going to give you a sort of air of dignity here for a while, and we're going to see where this goes. That's where I think the president's at.
What frustrates him most right now?
I think probably what frustrates him the most is that he has an economy that's booming. People are back to work. Black unemployment is under 6%. He's doing all the things he promised to do. And he's competing with a 24/7 media cycle that really doesn't profit on sort of,
good news.
Not even just good news, but just sort of just fairness. And, there's two sides of a story. We have 24/7 cable, and there's no money in, there's only money in division.
Yeah.
There's money. There is no money in sort of.
But that's the way it is. I mean, but he knows that. That's the way it is, and he thrives off it. But
unity is a loser. Division is profit.
But he's great when he goes to the people, and not just rallies, but the factory.
Well, like today,
the factory floors, the VFW.
I think the things
that humanizes him. Yes.
I loved I would always advise the president to go to every single. Go to the VFW, the American Legion, the veterans with disabilities, all those things, because you're right, it humanizes him, and whatever can humanize him makes him stronger in middle America.
People don't know, and he's actually very charming, and he's really funny, and he can be, and you don't see that a lot.
Yeah, and that's all very true, and I think
and
the more that comes out, the better.
You
said 45% by the worst poll.
Yeah.
I think the Democrats are handling themselves. If they would find a way to be moderate, but they can't, so they're running.
Republicans going to hit him on trade.
Bernie
keep hitting him on
Sanders
trade.
and the gal from Brooklyn.
They're going to keep hitting him on trade and tariffs.
Well, I mean, I believe that Sonny Perdue is a pretty smart guy. So if he thinks that these subsidies need to help the farmers, I agree with him. But I also think that if you're handing out $12 billion in subsidies, it's probably saying something about the policy. So I think he needs to be careful.
Right.
All right.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.